Today, we are excited to welcome Kevin Nowak, President and CEO of CHN Housing Partners. Under Kevin's leadership, CHN has grown its operating budget and real estate development pipeline, expanded its work to fill gaps in residential mortgage markets, implemented impactful housing services, and addressed affordable housing shortages across 4 states. Strategies developed under his time have included becoming a member of the NeighborWorks America Network, launching CHN Housing Capital, realigning CHN's home repair and rehab work to address asset quality issues in Cleveland and Detroit, developing and becoming the network manager of the Detroit Housing Network, administering both the first-of-its-kind Cleveland-led Safe Home Fund and the $100 million Cleveland-Cuyahoga County Rental Assistance Program, and growing CHN's role as a strategic partner to other nonprofits seeking to meet housing needs in their communities in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and New York. In addition to his work with CHN, Kevin serves on a number of boards, both national and local, including serving as the Vice President of the Ohio Housing Council, as a board member for the Housing Partnership Network and Ohio Capital Corporation for Housing, and as an advisory committee member for Enterprise Community Partners. I am pleased to turn it over to Kevin.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing today? I'm going to get this minimized here in 1 second so that we can see the screen a little bit better together. All right. So I'm joining you today from our state capital here in Columbus. As was mentioned, I am in the leadership of the Ohio Housing Council, and later today I'll be advocating for more resources, for affordable housing here in Ohio. So bear with me, working from actually the Office of Ohio Capital Corporation for Housing, OCCH, which, as mentioned, I'm a board member of. CHN Housing Partners, who are we, right? So CHN, we were founded in 1981. We're 501c3 headquartered in Cleveland. And we operate around what we call the power of a permanent address. Our mission is to leverage the power of affordable, stable housing to change lives and improve communities. We know that we can only do our work through partnerships with other organizations and people. And so we work very closely with other nonprofits, with government entities, financial institutions, et cetera, to really drive housing stability and homeownership opportunity across Northeast Ohio and beyond. When you think about our scale, we're a very large scale provider in terms of the people that we serve, in terms of the units we manage, in terms of what we developed, and really how many families we've helped become successful homeowners over time. When we think about our work, sometimes some people will call it vertically integrated, right? So we really try to understand what the needs are in our community, meet people where they are, help them get to where they want to be, design our programs and services in an effort to eliminate barriers. And in order to do so, we feel like we need to operate in a number of different verticals. So real estate development, affordable housing, which I'll talk a lot more about here today, is focused on both rental and home ownership, and we'll be featuring 3 of our rental, affordable housing developments today. Second is services. So you think about utility assistance, someone helping to keep the lights and the heat on, helping to make a home more energy efficient through energy conservation, making a home a healthier living environment through lead intervention. Working closely with the residents who are in our homes. We talk about the power of a permanent address, and we take that very seriously. Community building engagement is really about helping our families have that opportunity to, whether it be youth or people who are living in our homes, be able to find economic opportunities, whether through employment, through community engagement. We do counseling and education, where we help people, get into homes and help them stay there. Get access to various benefits they may have, such as earned income tax credit. And then we do mortgage lending. And we entered into mortgage lending because within our community and so many others, we see major gaps in people's ability to get mortgages. So we want to work to try to fill that gap. So what you're going to find in affordable housing that we do is that we work in a number of different asset classes, as well as we serve a number of different populations. So when you think about CHN, we serve families, we serve seniors, We do permanent supportive housing that focuses on the chronically homeless. And so we do quite a bit of different work here, in our affordable housing space. So when we look at our first one that we're going to look at today, it's Arch at St. Michael, which is over Clark Fulton, the old Central Catholic. For those of you who don't know this property but might know the new Central Via development, it's a couple of blocks over from it. It's a former school that was developed over 100 years ago. Is a true community asset, is beautiful architecturally. Here we're doing an adaptive reuse. And why are we doing an adaptive reuse of this building? And why are we helping support the senior population here? If you think about this part of Clark Fulton and into Tremont, so many of seniors are having their housing stability and their ability to age in place disturbed because of ongoing increases, in our property taxes, asset quality of homes. So we want to make sure we were plugging in long-term affordability for seniors within this neighborhood. We'll have 46 units here that we'll be focusing on developing. The project cost is big. It's $21.5 million. We started working on this before the pandemic, and when you hear about costs increasing because of the pandemic and related resources, we saw a significant 30+% increase, in this development. A couple other things I wanted to highlight here. This is a true partnership with a number of different organizations. So we're utilizing the low-income housing tax credit, which is the largest single resource for developing and preserving affordable housing in our country. It's a resource that was originally created under Ronald Reagan in 1986, and since then has had bipartisan support across both parties, from all the way across the spectrum, from Reagan to our current president Joe Biden. Both of the candidates, for president, both Harris and Trump are supportive of and have talked about expanding this tax credit. We work closely with investors and syndicators of tax credits here. KeyBank is our investor through a syndicator of tax credits called Ohio Capital Corporation for Housing, which I mentioned earlier. KeyBank is also a construction lender on this development. We partner with the city and the county to receive funding called home funds, and also we work with HUD to bring additional resources into Cleveland through something that's called a capital advance, and the 202 capital advance, which brought over $3 million of new grant money, as well as new project-based vouchers into our community. Timeline, like I mentioned, we started this work before the pandemic, and we got our award of LIHTC, in May of 2021. It's hard to think back to that time. We broke ground here in 2024. Construction has begun, and here we are, hopefully delivering in 2026, spring of 2026 for ribbon cutting. The second development that we have is called the Lotus, and this development focuses on transition age youth. So there's a significant need within our community for supporting young adults as they transition from foster care to independent living. We finished our construction. We're delivering the units as we speak, beginning the lease up process. This is a new construction, and unique within this development is really our focus on understanding the needs of the young adults who are going to be living here. So we work very closely with young adults in the development of this building, which has 50 units and considerable kind of service space, to understand what it is that the young adults are hoping to get out of both the built environment as well as the location, as well as services. So if you think about anybody coming to age as a young adult, and the young adults that we will be working with here, that are transition age youth who have oftentimes experienced a significant amount of trauma within their lives. We have a population who has experienced a significant amount of trauma, and that trauma that has led to homelessness. We worked very closely with the youth to say, what is it that you hope to get out of this development? They helped us to pick our location for the development after looking at what services and kind of areas of town people would want to live in. We've developed our entire service set around really helping our residents to stabilize and then be able to take that next step in their life to be able to support themselves outside of supportive housing. Wraparounds, so everything from case management, counseling, life skills, employment readiness, educational linkages, across the board. One of the things that when you think about the name of this development and you think about a lotus and what a lotus, signifies, lotus signifies a kind of a rebirth, a renewal, purity, really, a focus on the youth who have gone through what they have gone through, and this being that opportunity to be that stepping stone for them, to be empowered to take that next step in their life. Again, we finance this through the low income housing tax credit. We have significant support from City of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, and many others, in this development. Finally, the Louise C. Stokes Scholar House. Louise C. Stokes Scholar House is part of what we call service enriched housing. This development, we started working on this in 2016. And the focus on this is helping to break the cycle of poverty, through an intentional approach of working with people, student parents who have children, right? And trying to remove the barriers for parents to finish their college education, while helping their children to get that high quality early childhood ed. So truly a 2-gen approach to our work. We have an entire service set that we've partnered with the residents to deliver. We have deep partnerships with Cuyahoga County Community College, Tri-C, and Cleveland State University. And in this development, we have many other partners, that helped us to develop this, and as well as Senator Sherrod Brown, who helped to bring a $1.5 million earmark to help us close a gap. I mentioned before we have so many partners in all of our work, and that provide support in different ways. One of the entities listed here is Enterprise Community Partners. Some of you may know, is a large intermediary that helps support affordable housing across our country. There's indicator and tax credits. Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority is a partner of ours in helping to bring project-based vouchers that otherwise help us to eliminate the barrier for rent for the residents, and then kind of a cadre of others who really helped us to put together the lasagna that is the capital stack for this development and operations going forward. This wrap, and I know we have to kind of go to the question and answer, but really want to give the homage here that she deserves to Louise C. Stokes, after whom this development is named. Louise Stokes was the mom of Lewis and Carl Stokes, and the legacy that she has brought to Northeast Ohio through her sons and family beyond is immeasurable. And for our parents who have moved in, who are bringing in their children here to take that next step in their lives, we really wanted to bring kind of inspiration to them as to those sacrifices and what they've been through. How this creates that permanent address that we'll be leveraging the power of to make this all work. That's the overview. A lot to cover in 10 minutes, and I appreciate you trying to take that all in.
Evan, thank you for sharing some really amazing projects that you and your team have going on here in Cleveland. And you mentioned the partnerships that each of these projects have. How do they come about? How do you begin collaborating with others to bring some of these ideas to life?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, when CHN looks at what we're trying to accomplish, we're trying to understand first what the community need is, right? And then as we think about how we're addressing the community need, really understand what other organizations have the same shared values that we do, and would like to help to support these various efforts, right? So I see Jeff Wade, for example, from Cuyahoga, Metropolitan Housing Authority on. I didn't have my video on earlier. It was like I was looking at this blank screen of my presentation and wondering what everyone's faces were as I was going through this presentation. It was very But anyway, like I look at CMHA and all the work that we've done together, right? And really taking an intentional approach to serving the need in our community, and being willing to be that partner to kind of roll up your sleeves, not have to be, we're happy to take a lead and be out front, but really know that the only way that we solve for these issues are with partners who otherwise will bring their unique resources and experiences. So when you look at the Scholar House, for example, we knew when we looked at the barriers for parents to finish their college education, there were two key barriers. One of them was the ability to pay rent and go and pay for college, right? So working with CMHA to ensure that we had project-based vouchers allowed for us to solve for that barrier, right? The next barrier we knew we had to address was childcare, right? Working with Step Forward, who is a leading Head Start provider, in Northeast Ohio, to bring early Head Start into our building directly. So we have 8 to 12 slots in early Head Start within our building itself. Where we can get them to provide access to Head Start and other locations that they have, as well as having flexibility with the families to find other opportunities. So that's thinking through the barriers, not thinking we need to solve for everything ourselves, but kind of leveraging these key partnerships and talking and really having that willingness to kind of share in the result is really important.
In the conversation around housing, especially new developments that are coming into the community, affordable housing is mentioned often, but it sounds like can mean a couple different things. Can you share really what is defined as affordable housing and what does that look like?
Have answered this question twice today, right? So people have said, what does affordable housing mean to you, right? And so, then some people say, is it home ownership? Is it rental? What is it, right? And so I try to take a step back and think about affordability of housing, right? And so when you think about affordability of housing, the gold standard is that someone is not paying any more than 30% of their monthly income for housing, right? So whether that is rental, whether that is home ownership, so rental, your rent payments, whether for home ownership, it's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. If we start at that base level, as opposed to what is the asset class we're talking about, that's where you are able to kind of create a common definition, right? And then once you get to that common definition, you look at our kind of area in Northeast Ohio, and you look at where the deficits are, right? So in Northeast Ohio, it is actually cheaper to be a homeowner than to be a renter. That is something that across the country, that metric has flipped almost everywhere. It has not flipped in Northeast Ohio, right? So, and that's when you're considering capital needs that a house would have over time. So, when we're thinking about affordability of housing, going to what people can afford. Now, when you add the overlay of Northeast Ohio having a significant amount of concentration of poverty, particularly in particular areas within our community, that adds a whole nother level, right? And affordability of housing in parts of our community look different than others, right? In terms of this kind of average incomes of residents. So trying to provide those opportunities for affordable housing, right? Housing people can afford, right? Based on kind of what is kind of the gold standard for percentage of income, whether you are in whether you're in the central neighborhood or you're in Westlake, right? I think you can create a common definition and then operate from there.
You mentioned some of your advocacy work. Can you speak to some of the key policies that your organization is focused on right now when it comes to advocacy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll put on a couple of hats here. So CHN Housing Partners, being a 501c3, we don't do actual advocacy, we do education, right? So I'll put that little, kind of caveat there. But I am also I'm also in the leadership of the Ohio Housing Council, right? And also on our political action committee for the Ohio Housing Council, right? So there are a couple of key things at the state level that we are uniquely focused on. One is the Ohio low housing tax credit. So we have a state tax credit that partners with the federal. I was part of the leadership team at OHC that got that done this past budget round. So Right now, what we're looking at is trying to extend that further and to increase the resource. So we were able to accomplish in the last budget round the single biggest resource funding affordable housing in our state and in our state history, which is the state low house tax credit, which right now brings $100 million a year of state tax credits to support the development of affordable housing. So that's one biggie for us to preserve and to expand. A second is the welcome home tax credit, which a tax credit that was passed. It's a state tax credit, again, state and local resource, right? Which federal resource is so important, is the bulk of what we see in affordable housing. But the future for us that we need to be considering is self-sufficiency as much as we can, right? In supporting affordable housing and prioritizing that as a policy, both at the state and the local level. So that Welcome Home Ohio program provides for subsidy to help to preserve, home ownership throughout our communities by supporting the rehab of units, with a tax credit. So that's another one that's a big one for us as we're looking from a policy perspective. Another thing we're looking at is overall, if we look at kind of the state level, some property tax reform that otherwise would allow for municipalities to make policy determinations around whether they want to give tax relief, to seniors and others who are longtime property owners within communities, longtime homeowners. And then finally, at the local level, I think it's incredibly important for us to be thinking about how we create a locally sourced housing trust fund, like what we have seen, in Franklin, Columbus, like we've seen in Cincinnati, like we've seen in other cities across the country. That has really helped to drive affordable housing development, both on the rental and the home ownership side. At the federal level, it's really about expanding the low-income housing tax credit. And there are a number of Congress folks across the board, including, of course, Senator Sherrod Brown, who has been a big advocate of that, but also, Representative Mike Carey out of the Columbus area, who is on the Ways and Means Committee and is a big advocate in whatever tax-mageddon, tax palooza, whatever you want to call 2025 and kind of, income taxation at the federal level. I'm more of an internal optimist, Ted Lasso side, so I'm saying tax palooza. But that's he's a big supporter and I think can help pull through, some extension of the low tax credit at the federal level.
Kind of staying on the federal level line here, there's been some conversations around that there are a number of federal programs that were in place for nearly 25, 30 years that are expiring, and that there's some housing product out there that could shift from affordable to market rate due to these expiring credits. Is this happening? And are there any discussions around trying to keep these critical units affordable?
Yep, that's a great question. And so a number of those developments were developed originally through the low-income housing tax credit. And early in the program, the low-income housing tax credit has an initial 15-year compliance period, right? So after that 15-year period, depending upon how the state administers the program, there is a varying level of affordability that's available, right? And so the state, decade plus ago now, had decided that it was going to have an extended use period of at least another 15 years. So most affordable housing developed through the LIHTC program that has been developed in the last 10, 12 years has that further extended use period. But there are a number of developments that are outside of the extended use period from prior that are at risk. One of the things that we have worked on, because the low housing tax credit is a federal program administered by the Ohio Housing Finance Agency. So it essentially gets allocated per state based on population, and then the Housing Finance Agency of each state administers it and has particular policy prerogatives that it follows, right? And so we have begun to see OFA, Finance Agency, OFA, prioritize the preservation of prior LIHTC deals. And in a lot of cases, those deals need that prioritization and that follow-on investment in order to be sustainable. So That is the biggest, that's the best way for us to do it. And also as the city and county think about a housing trust fund, hopefully, there's opportunity for them to be thinking about how a locally sourced housing trust fund could prioritize both preservation and new construction. It's much easier and sexier to say we produced, thousands of new units. It's, not as sexy to say we preserved these units, right? Even though that is at a baseline is where we need to be. So,
Are there any future projects focusing on women and children, much like in addition to the Scholar House?
yeah. So, as CHN is thinking through our work, our intent, our customer base, particularly in our affordable housing, has a predominance with women with children. It's not something we've specifically said this development is for, right? But it is kind of where it has fallen, and we see in our community so many female-headed households and we see corresponding, kind of poverty rates within many of these female-headed households. So, when we look at our affordable housing, a significant amount are female-headed households. What we have done, like if we look at our lease purchase work, which is we utilize the loan housing tax credit to develop single-family homes, scattered site, that after 15 years can be a home ownership opportunity for the person living there, right? About 77% of the people who have bought our homes are it's female-headed households. Oftentimes with 1 to 2 children, and we see correspondingly within our mortgage lending work, approximately 50% of the households being female-headed households, and really that goes to the intentionality of our kind of marketing and the intentionality of our outreach. And how then that has been able to pull through to support, many of those households that are, women with children.
As you look ahead for the next 5 to 10 years for CHN, what's on the horizon? What would you like to see happen?
How much time do we have for that question? Jeez. A couple of things. One, I'm a high closure guy, right? So I want to see some real movement in our ability to produce affordable housing units here with local support, right? So that's one of my top priorities when I look at that. If I had my wish list. I want to see CHN continuing our intentionality of supporting folks in the way that we are, like with Scholar House type of models, right? Lotus type of models, really having that kind of intentionality to what we're doing. I'd love to see closure within some of our mortgage gaps within our community. And we're seeing real progress in the way that we have brought our Believe mortgage product to the market. Our Believe mortgage product, anybody who otherwise qualifies can utilize that product. It's not just for particular areas, particular people, but because we've had a very intentional approach to the development of that product, looking at barriers such as credit scores, down payment, looking at how we're deploying these dollars, working very closely with Realtist Association, realtors who work in markets that often are underserved for mortgages, looking at our intentionality and appraisals. What we've been able to do is to see kind of really great results, right? And when we look at it, 96% of our borrowers are African American or Latino, 50% are female-headed households. You're having an average income about $45,000. We're deploying mortgages that people said you couldn't in places where they said you can't. And so, us being able to create that more kind of equitable path to home ownership is something I hope to scale further, and hope to help support all of you in doing that.
Well, Kevin, we thank you for all of the work you and your team are doing here around affordable housing, such an important issue in our greater Cleveland community. So thank you for all of that and for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, and please feel free to reach out. My information's and materials. Thank you for support and your interest.